Hello and welcome once again. Today we have Commissioner of the City of Coral Gables, Melissa Castro. Melissa, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm extremely excited, and I was really looking forward to spending some time with you here in the community news.
Thank you. We had a little schedule conflicts, but we finally made it work, and we're here together. So thank you for coming, Melissa. I met you 2 years ago when I first did a trip with the Coral Gables Chamber to Tallahassee. You had just, I guess that was your first trip to Tallahassee with the chamber. Tell us how, first of all, what you're doing now and where, catch us up.
Well, I actually had gone with the chamber before I was a commissioner, so
Okay.
it wasn't my first time, but it was
Okay.
my first time meeting you.
Yes.
And that was really fun, very exciting times, I have to say. That was the first time I went with you. I was a commissioner.
Right.
And then I went again and I saw you again.
Yes.
And we had a splendid time as well.
Yes.
How did it go there? Or how has my life been?
Well, how has your life been? What have you been working on? What are you doing today? Stuff like that.
Oh boy, I've been working on so many things, but I really, really try to work on things that would improve the quality of life of the community, of residents. And not only residents, but also our city employees, because at the end of the day, you have to think you're here to manage, not to manage because the city manager does that, but you're here to guide the city manager or to guide administration on how to manage the city, right? And if we think of the city as a business, right? What type of business would that be? A service-based business, because we're not selling
Most
a product.
definitely, yeah.
Are we selling a product?
No.
Do we have inventory? No, right? So if you're selling a service and people are moving into Coral Gables, it's because we're selling a really good service, right? According to how much they're paying for their taxes. So I think it's very important to keep in mind the employees of the city as well, right? And how do we save money, or how are we most efficient with them? How are we making sure that our employees are competitive, their salaries are competitive, that our turnovers are low?
That's important.
That's extremely important because unfortunately, we're not as competitive in the city of Coral Gables, and our turnovers are high. In fact, look at we have a huge amount of police officers that we have a high vacancy amount.
Yes.
Which to me is detrimental for our city, because one of the most important things is safety. That's the backbone between fire and police. Fire is doing a little better. We don't have vacancies, but police, we're still struggling with hiring. And I would say most of it has to do with compensation. So to run a city, it is very important, service-based, that we take care of our employees, that we are comparing to the rest of the municipalities in the county and making sure that they're not leaving and why are they leaving. So some of my initiatives are to make sure that we are treating our employees correctly and fairly. And I was one of the people to push work from home at least one day as a benefit. Well, if we can, be competitive with other municipalities, what benefit are we going to give the employees?
Right.
Right?
There's got to be a give and take.
There has to be, like, how are we retaining our employees? And I want to make sure that they are going home happy and they're coming back, because I want them to service my residents with happiness, with joy. I don't want them to be at work thinking, how am I going to make ends meet? Does that make sense?
Totally.
So, I mean, I initiated the morale committee. I brought back the annual picnics. What else have I done? I usually do employee luncheons out of the small amount of funds I get a year as commissioner. So I push that a lot because I see the correlation between giving an exceptional service, that's what Coral Gables is, right? And employees.
Well, that's like the song, if you're good to mama, mama's good to you. If you're good to your employees are definitely going to be good to your citizens and to the residents of that municipality. You spoke about people moving into Coral Gables. Is a correlation continuing of seeing more and more people moving into Coral Gables than leaving, or?
So I think it's a give and take. I think some of the older folks are leaving because we're pricing them out, and then there's younger folks coming in. So I think, and there's also people that are not even from the States that are coming into Coral Gables. We're really, the price ranges are really up there for us right now, but we're trying our best to make sure that there's that healthy balance.
What other priorities do you see coming, like in the next year with the new fiscal budget coming in?
Well, there was an election. So at this point, I cannot even foresee what's going to happen because, well, we'll see. We'll see. To be continued. We'll see in these coming months what's going to happen. But I'm still going to keep on focusing on the things that I've been focusing on, which is the resident parking rate discount, a pilot program. I'm also focusing on permit expediting review process, which I'm extremely excited about.
And I want to stop you there because every municipality has the same issue. The county has it. City of Miami Beach, tremendous issue. You know, how is it that we continue to see this all around? What is it that you're trying to make a difference there? How are you making a difference?
For permitting?
Yes.
Number one, if I have to say I'm the expert in permitting, I don't only permit, I stop. Well, I'll get back to that, and I'll fill you in a little bit with what's happening with me in Coral Gables and permitting. But I know the ins and outs. I know the different cities. And not only that, I also service the rest of the United States in my private business.
Okay.
So South Florida, well, sometimes New York, sometimes Washington, but South Florida is the hardest place to permit. So I think I want to be able to offer the city that benefit of my expertise and knowledge. And I created a program that I tried to create from the beginning, but there was so much commotion happening that if it was a conflict of interest and this and people filing ethic complaints on me. And to be honest, people were really related to, because since 2 weeks ago, I said, you know what, I'm not going to stay quiet. I am going to say things as they are.
Mm-hmm.
So related to the mayor, he hired his criminal defense attorney to file complaints on me. But that's okay, because when you don't do anything wrong, that's not an issue.
Nothing to fear.
Nothing to fear. Just the fact that I keep on having to spend money on an attorney to defend me and keep on winning the cases. But
It's still putting a hamper on it.
Come on. And that is it. Okay, so we'll go back to that subject and then I'll keep on addressing that one. And that's the problem, right? I used to service, I got an ethics, I asked for an opinion when I first got elected, saying, please give me the boundaries of what is ethical. I want to make sure that everything I'm doing is perfect and it's not going to come back to me. So they ended up giving me an opinion saying that I can still work in the city of Coral Gables and that I just couldn't do like very minusculous things, right? And then after I gave it a lot of thought, I said, you know what? I cannot help Coral Gables because they're always pushing me aside because I have this business. Let me get rid of the Coral Gables. I'm not going to benefit from it. And
this is a permitting business.
This is a permitting business, which a lot of my work was in Coral Gables.
Okay.
So I don't own it anymore. Somebody else owns MED Expeditors of Coral Gables.
Of Coral Gables.
Coral Gables. And I said, now is the time to get my hands dirty and really get to work in Coral Gables.
So you're on your first term right now.
I'm on my first term. It was heartbreaking for me because Coral Gables was everything for my mom. And it was very important, but I think I'm doing more letting it go than actually keeping it and keep on fighting against people that just want to destroy me, honestly. So then let me talk about the program.
Yes.
So the program is an expedited review process with a private, it's not a private provider, is one of our partners that we already work with in the city. We did an RFP, and I believe they chose somebody already. And we're going to be charging 15% on top of the permit cost. It's all within the city. It's not being sent nowhere else. We're working together. We're partners. It's 15% more. And each round of reviews is going to be 5 days. 5-day turnaround.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Expedite.
I'm telling you, that's phenomenal. And I would not be surprised if other cities piggyback on this idea, because I'm extremely excited about it. So the only things that we're going to be carrying through this program is going to be interior remodels or interior alterations, commercial and residential. So let me give you an example. All those little stores in Miracle Miles that sometimes take 2 years to get a permit, those would qualify for that expedited permit request, permit process, expedited permitting process. And does that make sense what I'm saying, or am I like?
No. I'm trying to see EPP.
Yeah, so EPPS, I think is what we had said. And then, I mean, the more money we put, not more money, but the more investment we put into our central business district, the better it is for the tax base of residents.
Of course.
Okay. Why? Because people want to move in. Taxes are higher. Our central business district has almost 40% of our tax base. So the more money that is there, the more either we could improve services or we could lower the millage. Either way. So all of that contributes really to my final goal, which is, let me offer my residents the best services possible, like resort living city, or let me lower the millage. Right. And I really think that people live in Coral Gables because of the services we offer, because of the beautiful streets, because we go into the backyard and get your garbage and bring it back in there. I mean,
it's the services.
It's 100% services.
Now, let me ask you: would you be giving a priority to residents in this program? Because sometimes what I find, at least in Miami Beach, is that the developers have the greatest access to the whole permitting process, and when a resident comes just for a simple, let's say, I have a friend who just got a deck in her house. It took her almost 3 months to get a permit, and she was fortunate that she's not working, so she could go to the city hall and expedite it as best as she could. But it still took her like 3 months. So we got to think about giving that resident that expedited service and that preferential treatment versus versus a developer.
Listen, that's music to my ears. You're talking to the right person. That is exactly my thoughts as well. So let me go ahead and tell you exactly how the program is going to work. Okay. So yes, residential. Now, when it comes to windows, that's exterior, but interior, anything that happens inside the house, that would be part of the program. For the people that don't opt in, so this is how it's going to work. For the people that don't opt in and don't pay, the workload of the actual city staff is going to be less. So the more people I have coming into this program paying means that I'm also improving the service here for the people that are not paying. Right? Does that make sense? So it's a win-win.
Right.
It's a win-win for and it's not only tailoring businesses, it's really tailoring the whole city. It's nothing in particular. I was just mentioning businesses because there's a correlation to how much revenue it brings in to then be able to lower the millage rate for residents.
And you are trying to basically not lower the millage because then the services would.
Exactly. Because I also believe that my ultimate goal is to lower the millage.
Okay.
But not right now. I don't think we're ready to do that right now. I think first we need to have all our ducks in order. Number one, we need to fix our vacancies with police, which is extremely important. We need to make sure that we are keeping up with our central business district. I mean, there's so many more things that we need to do.
Police for me, I'm one of the very police oriented, and safety oriented. But when I see that a city like Coral Gables, which has such a demand, because the residents do demand a lot, and that the number one issue is police vacancies. That's really hard. I mean, it's really difficult to like swallow that.
Tell me about it.
I mean,
yes, very much. I think our vacancies right now is around 30. we have had several of officers come in and then be sworn in. However, we keep on losing, and I know the county offers exceptional benefits, and it's really, really hard to compete against the county, and we're losing a lot of people, not only to there, but to Broward as well. With our budget, we're doing the best we can to go ahead and retain our officers, but it's been a little hard, especially the younger officers, because now everything is so public. Everybody, you know how much everybody is making.
Of course.
There's so much easy access to applying somewhere else that the culture, not only for officers, it's for all employees.
And this police officer vacancies, it's really across the board. I mean, I think all municipalities are experiencing the same issue. You're not alone, but when you're competing with a giant that's paying a lot better, with better services and better benefits, then you're at a loss, because you're not only not bringing them in, you're losing the ones you have. So I would imagine that you right now are having a lot of overtime. And
so every officer is required to work overtime right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say the biggest factor here is really compensation. And the chief is really working the best he could to be able to come up with strategies to improve retention. It takes a little bit. It's not from one day to another.
No, obviously, yeah. But kudos to Chief Hudak for working and trying to develop that into a better force. But at the same time, retaining is a chore that he has before him, which is it's quite difficult in today's society. Not only it's a municipality wide, but it's also like a generational thing. People don't really, being out public service is not really one of the top things that people want to do nowadays, or the new generation. So that's why I think we're having a lot of difficulties in a lot of the departments, law enforcement departments across the board. So what else do you see that you want to focus on going forward in these troubling times? I mean, they're difficult all around, externally and internally. So
yes. So I was also I've been working for probably over a year with the Public Works, with solid waste department, seeing their operations and seeing how we could improve. And we have exceptional staff, and we're brainstorming right now. And I've thrown out some little things in my newsletters, giving little hints of the things that I'm working on: how to improve recycling, how to improve the way we carry out business. Still going to your backyard and getting your garbage, but just the quality of the heat in Coral Gables is so bad that I have some of the employees passing out and ambulances coming and getting IVs.
Wow.
Yes. So I want to make sure that it's a safe environment, but second, that we're not missing routes and we're providing the best quality possible, because to my residents, the most important thing is police, fire, and garbage, solid waste. I think with those three things, and traffic seems to be, but it's a problem in all South Florida. But totally. Those are the things that residents really cherish: police, fire, and solid waste. So I want to make sure that at least those three services are top notch, 5 stars.
What you say it's very warm in Coral Gables, but you have one of the most luscious streets with trees and canopies and all that. Are you guys looking to bring more of that into the city, or?
Yeah, so we're a tree city, and we take trees extremely serious. I mean, every time there's going to be a tree relocation or a tree removal, we get an email, and the commission gets an email to make sure that it gets approved. And we have around 7 days or 10 days to be able to respond. If we don't respond, then the tree is removed. But we're a tree city. That's the beautifulness of Coral Gables. But anytime we have an opportunity to either plant or bring more trees in, we do, if it gives us opportunity to.
One of the things that we've been seeing about is that the police departments are participating in assisting ICE in these raids that we're having. And Coral Gables is one of the cities that signed on. Was that something that the entire commission voted on, or is that something that was just arbitrarily signed because of the mandate, or how was that?
So yes, so that's a funny subject because that was something that was not brought up to the commission. This was a decision that the chief made on his own. He is the head of a legislative police in Tallahassee, a committee, and he felt that this was necessary. I found out when the news came to me and residents were coming to me, but according to our charter, he didn't have to bring it to the commission.
Okay.
Okay, so he did guarantee us that we're not stopping people, we're not profiling people or taking resources. It's only an agreement if ICE comes and asks us to do something. He has a dedicated, I'm not sure how he didn't disclose how many people in
So once you sign, do you get money for training? How
yes,
do you train individuals?
and that's exactly one of the reasons to be able to receive resources from the state. And one of the other reasons was because he felt that it was kind of a threat not to accept it, that there was going to be certain consequences. There was going to be certain consequences if we didn't.
Right. And that's kind of scary that we're living in that type of society in the United States in today's 2025. I mean, for me, that's really like that we're living scared to speak up. We're doing things so we don't get repercussions to the budget or to the allocations or anything like that. That's we're walking into really slippery slope there, and I know that sometimes right now county, citywide municipality, sometimes municipalities have our hands tied, and the state preempts everything. So we're at a really difficult time, and it's scary that a chief of police has to feel that way and act that way just because of repercussions. And
well, he thought it was the best interest of the city to go ahead and accept that.
And you can't blame him, because God forbid he does it wrong way, and then the city gets, penalized $2 million. Well, $2 million for a city of the size is quite, substantial.
So there was nothing on paper really saying what the actual consequences were going to be, but there was language kind of saying there would be a consequence.
And has there been raids here in Coral Gables? We saw a picture of nannies being on the bus, getting pulled up. I saw one time, but I don't know.
I think what you're talking about was that we had 2 incidents with Chinese nationals.
Okay.
That they were actually coming from the Bahamas.
Okay.
Those were, and that actually happened before the agreement was signed.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was, oh my God, if I can remember the number, I think the first one was, don't quote me on this because I could probably be inversing the numbers, but I think the first one was 27 nationals and Chinese nationals, and then the second time around was 20 something as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I think given that situation, it was really more of a threat to our borders and keeping our city safe more than anything political.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that one. So tell us a little bit more of what you plan on doing. Do you plan on running for re-election in 2 years? What are you looking forward to?
Let's see if it's 2 years, because of what I'm hearing, there's going to be a special meeting on May 6th.
In your commission? In
my commission.
Okay.
I won't be able to attend. I'm going to be having surgery.
Okay.
For something that I'm having, a health related issue, and I will be under general anesthesia, and the commission knows, but they still decided to go ahead with this special commission meeting. And in that special commission meeting, they're going to be discussing changing the elections to November.
So it would be to this November, or?
So it would be they would cut my term I'm thinking that's what's going to happen.
Definitely not extended. They're going to cut it.
I would think that's what's going to happen. I don't want that to happen.
Right. We would hate for that to happen.
I would hate for that to happen. Not only because it would cut my term. I mean, that's the least of my worries. But because a November election, number one, we've had elections in April for 100 years. and that's part of the charter. But moving an election to November, you're really mixing different types of politics. I think we need to leave local elections at a separate date because we're focusing on local issues, and local issues are really what are the changes that are impacting your daily lives.
Most and that's across the board. In politics is like parties coming into local, and really when you have a street that needs to be filled, the hole in the street that needs to be filled. You're not calling your Democratic congressman to help you. That you're calling your commissioner,
of course,
your mayor, and those really should not be partisan positions, or partisan have anything to do in these elections. And that's like the same thing of wanting to move elections on to odd year, get them off from odd years to even years, so they could be with the presidential and governors elections as well. And
so, I mean, one of the biggest issues, if you go back to every other election, has been overdevelopment, and that hasn't stopped except until this election. That does not even talk about what happened in this election, but every prior election, the main focus has been overdevelopment and how much money developers or lobbyists or special interest groups give to candidates. Okay. So usually the ones that are more well-funded from developers, because it's really hard to have a grassroots campaign with your community and raise $300,000. That's not going to happen in a grassroots campaign in a small municipality of 49,000 people. And we have 36,000 voters. So this election was very, very, very different. I think this election, the people focused on things that really weren't affecting their daily lives. And one of them was changing the elections to November. The opposition would say, the other side would say that it is to save $200,000 and to have bigger voter turnout. But in reality, $200,000 is a drop when we're talking about millions of dollars from our city budget. We need to focus really on local issues that are really affecting your life, like permitting, like traffic, like safety.
And not that you're against development, because if anything, you're a developer, or you're for development, just a smart development, correct?
I'm so glad you brought that conversation up, because yes, I don't want people to misunderstand where I stand with that subject, because you can very easily say this person's completely this way, right, or this person's completely that way.
And I feel that you need to clarify that
100%, because what I am really for is healthy development, smart development. We need to involve the community and make sure that they are happy with what's going to be developed, because we need to keep on evolving.
Right.
We can't just stay in the old the whole time, but we need to form some type of harmony, right? We need to make sure everybody's included and that we're coming up with whatever is in the best interest of the city. And just not developing is not in the best interest of the city. We're going to stay behind, 100 years. That's not the case. The case is that if we're going to develop, let's be strategically smart. And do we have enough infrastructure? Can our streets carry the amount of traffic it's going to be? Is there enough schools that are surrounding? Because if we're going to put a building, how many kids are going to be in that building? What about fire? Do we need to increase our fire force? What about police? Well, right now we have vacancy in police.
Right,
are we even, it all goes hand in hand. So I have to make sure that it's adequate for that development to come about, and I am completely for it, right? But something harmonious, something that the whole community comes together to build something beautiful.
And also building something that is needed, not just for the sake of building. Sometimes these buildings are built and they're not even rented out or sold. They're just left, or the commercial property wasn't really developed properly, or the best use of space was processed. So that's where we're going with this, proper parking also, because you could build these great buildings, but if you don't have parking for them, where are you going to park all these cars everybody
Yeah.
has.
And I would want nothing more than for us to have a culture where everybody's walking and everybody doesn't have a car and we're being, friendly with sustainability. But that's not the reality of Coral Gables. Yes, we have a downtown where everybody walks, but everybody gets there in a car,
Right.
at the
Or
end of the
freebie.
day. Or freebie, which is another thing that I've pushed for these 2 years very much, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the truth of the matter is, we do need parking, and traffic is a huge issue, not only for us. Traffic is a huge issue for all of South Florida. So those are big things we need to keep in mind when we're talking about development.
Well, we could sit here and continue talking all day. Unfortunately, our time has come to a close. I thank you for coming and giving us, you're always welcome to come here. This is your home as well. Anything that you want to push, please feel free to just give us a call and say, hey, I need to come back. But until next time, we'll see you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.